Welcome to the Clinical Pen. We're really glad you could join us.
Great to be here.
And hey, before we get started, please do subscribe wherever you listen and check out clinicalpen.com for more.
Yeah, that's where you'll find everything.
Absolutely. So today, we're going to discuss something that's, well, it's pretty much everywhere. Screens.
Hard to avoid them.
Totally.
I know.
Think about it. Your phone, maybe it's in your hand right now. Laptops for work, school, tablets, TVs. They're just woven into our days, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Completely.
And, I think a lot of us have this little nagging feeling sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe all that time staring, scrolling, tapping.
Yeah.
It's actually, doing something
Yeah.
to us.
Yeah, and it's more than just a hunch for a lot of people. The science really backs this up. How we interact with screens, it's not passive. It's actively shaping things, our brains, our bodies.
Even how we connect with people.
Yeah, that too.
Right. So what we want to do today is really get into what the science actually says about this huge part of modern life. Not to, demonize technology or anything.
No, not at all. It's incredibly useful. Connects us, helps us learn.
Exactly. But it's more about understanding the effects,
Yeah.
right? So we can be a bit more mindful, make better choices about how and when we use it all.
It's about getting a bit more control back, finding that balance.
Okay, let's discuss this then. Where should we start? Maybe the brain, the control center. What's going on up there with all this screen time?
Good place to start. So one of the biggest things that comes up in the research is this idea of cognitive impact, particularly from constant task switching.
Multitasking, which we all think we're brilliant at.
Right. We juggle emails, messages, notifications, whatever we're actually trying to do.
Right.
But the brain, it doesn't really work like that. It's not true multitasking.
It's more like switching back and forth really fast.
Exactly. Rapid switching. And doing that constantly, jumping between different kinds of information, different demands. It's actually incredibly tiring for your brain.
How so?
Well, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for focus, planning, decisions it has to keep, reorienting itself every single time you switch. And this doesn't make you more efficient. It causes something called attention residue.
Attention residue. Okay, what's that?
It basically means part of your brain is still stuck on the last thing you were doing, still thinking about that email or that notification, even when you're trying to focus on the next task.
So you're never fully there on the new task.
Precisely. And that leftover mental load, it really tanks your ability to concentrate deeply. The research clearly shows it contributes to a shorter attention span overall, and it messes with memory too. It's just harder to properly store information when your focus is fragmented.
So that feeling,
Yeah.
After hours online where you feel kind of foggy, scattered,
Yeah.
it's not just being tired, it's like actual brain exhaustion.
That's a great way to put it. It's cognitive fatigue. Your brain's used up a ton of energy just managing all those shifts. There's less left for deep thinking. And then layered on top of that, especially if it's later in the day, you've got the whole blue light issue.
Right, blue light. This comes up a lot. And it connects directly to, our basic biology, doesn't it?
It really does. See, all screens give off blue light, and that specific wavelength, it's really good at telling your brain to stop making melatonin.
Melatonin, the sleep hormone.
Exactly. It's the signal that says, hey, it's getting dark, time to wind down, get ready for sleep.
But if you're looking at a bright screen, especially like your phone right up close, late at night,
Your brain gets the wrong message. It thinks, oh, it's still daytime. So melatonin production gets shut down, or at least reduced, and that completely throws off your natural sleep-wake cycle, your circadian rhythm.
okay, I see.
And the downstream effects are pretty clear. Trouble falling asleep, maybe waking up more, not getting enough of that really restorative deep sleep or REM sleep.
Which then makes you tired and groggy the next day.
Right. It's a whole cascade. Poor sleep hits your mood, your thinking, even your physical health. It's all connected.
So what can you actually do about that? The blue light thing seems pretty fundamental.
Well, there are some really practical strategies. The simplest one is just stopping screen use completely, say at least an hour before you plan to go to sleep.
Give your brain a chance to catch up.
Exactly. Let the melatonin do its thing naturally. The other option, if you really have to be on a screen late, is using those blue light filters.
Mm-hmm.
Most phones and computers have them now.
Do they really work?
They definitely help. They reduce that specific disruptive wavelength. Maybe not quite as good as no screen at all, but certainly better than the full blast of blue light.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got cognitive fatigue, messed up sleep. What about, our emotions? our social lives. Does screen time impact that stuff too?
Oh, absolutely. The research draws some pretty strong lines there,
Yeah.
especially looking at heavy use of social media.
Right, which promises connection, but
But often seems linked to more anxiety, sometimes depression, and kind of paradoxically, it can actually increase feelings of loneliness or isolation. You might have hundreds of friends online, but, well, the quality of that connection isn't always the same as face-to-face.
yeah, I get that. And the comparison thing, that's huge, right? Seeing everyone's perfect-looking lives online.
Huge. It's constant exposure to these curated highlight reels, and we inevitably compare our own, normal, messy lives to that.
And that comparison rarely feels good.
Exactly. The study suggests this online social comparison is a major factor in lower self-esteem. It just chips away at your sense of worth when you're constantly seeing idealized versions of reality.
Okay, now, here's something I found really fascinating in the material. The connection between screen use, especially certain apps, and our brain's reward system, like dopamine.
Yes, this is really key to understanding why it can be so hard to put the devices down. It taps into what's called intermittent or variable reward.
Variable rewards.
Yeah.
Like a slot machine.
Sort of, yeah. Think about refreshing your feed, waiting for a notification, a like, a comment. You don't know when it's coming, or if it's coming, or how good it will be.
Right, it's unpredictable.
And that unpredictability is incredibly powerful for driving behavior. Each potential reward, that ding, that little red dot, triggers a small surge of dopamine in your brain. That's the neurotransmitter linked to pleasure, motivation, wanting.
So that little buzz you get from a notification, that's a dopamine hit.
Essentially, yes. And because it's not guaranteed every time, sometimes you get lots of engagement, sometimes nothing, it creates this really strong, often subconscious pull to keep checking, keep scrolling, keep seeking that next little hit.
Yeah.
And the research points out that this mechanism, this neurological pathway, it actually shares similarities with the pathways involved in addiction.
Whoa, okay, so not saying it is addiction, but the brain wiring is similar.
Exactly. It uses similar reward circuits and reinforcement patterns, which helps explain why just using less willpower isn't always enough. These apps are often designed to hook into that system.
That really changes how you think about just casually checking your phone, doesn't it?
It does. It highlights the powerful design elements that are often working against our intentions.
Okay, so we've covered the brain, sleep, emotions. What about the purely physical stuff, like the toll on our bodies? I think we've all felt that, starting with the eyes.
Oh, definitely. Digital eye strain, sometimes called computer vision syndrome, is super common, just staring at a screen for hours.
Your eyes get dry, itchy.
Yeah, dry, irritated, maybe red, blurred vision sometimes, headaches, just general eye fatigue. A big part of it is you tend to blink less when you're focused on a screen. Plus, your eye muscles are constantly working to focus at that fixed, close distance.
But there's that simple trick, right? The 20-something rule.
The 20-20-20 rule, yeah. It's great because it's easy to remember every 20 minutes you're looking at a screen.
Look away
Look away at something at least 20 feet away.
for 20 seconds.
Exactly. It just gives your eye muscles a break, lets them relax, and it helps you remember to blink more normally, which helps with dryness.
Such a small thing, but probably makes a big difference. Okay, moving down. Neck and back. Oh boy. Tech neck. Is that a real thing?
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Poor posture while using screens is a massive issue. Constantly looking down at your phone or hunching over a laptop, that puts a lot of strain on your neck, your cervical spine.
Yeah, that ache at the base of your skull, top of your shoulders.
That's the one. And over time, that chronic poor posture doesn't just cause stiffness. It can lead to chronic back pain, shoulder problems, maybe even nerve issues. Long term, it can even contribute to degenerative changes in the spine.
Yikes. So ergonomics matter.
Hugely. Simple things help, using a chair that actually supports you properly, keeping your feet flat on the floor. And a big one is getting your screen up to eye level.
So you're looking straight ahead, not down.
Right. Reduces that neck strain significantly.
All the sitting involved, or even standing still if you have a standing desk. That lack of movement has got to have wider effects, right? Oh, for sure. It directly eats into time you could be physically active. All those hours spent scrolling, streaming, working. That's sedentary time.
And we know sedentary time isn't great.
Not at all. It's linked to a whole bunch of health problems. Things like weight gain, obviously, but also weaker muscles, poorer cardiovascular health. And it increases the risk for serious conditions like type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, stuff like that.
It really shows how it all connects, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The mental fatigue might make you less motivated to move, and then the lack of movement hits your physical health.
It can definitely become a cycle. That's why the consistent advice is to consciously build movement back in. Schedule short breaks to walk around, do some simple stretches at your desk, maybe stand up during calls, anything to break up that static posture, and of course, make time for actual exercise outside of screen time.
Okay, now these effects sound like they hit everyone, but the research paid special attention to kids and teens, right?
Yeah.
Because they're still developing.
Exactly. That's a really crucial point. Their brains, especially that prefrontal cortex we talked about, the part for impulse control, planning, focus, it's still under construction. That makes them potentially more vulnerable to the effects of constant stimulation and that rapid task switching.
So it could impact their attention spans long term.
The concern is definitely there. Overuse might affect their ability to develop sustained attention, which is obviously crucial for learning. It can make deep focus harder. And can potentially interfere with social development too.
How does it affect social development?
Well, if a lot of their social interaction is happening through screens, they might miss out on learning to read subtle in-person cues. Facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, all that stuff that's really key for building empathy and strong relationships.
Right, those nuances get lost online.
They can. Plus, screen time often competes directly with things like unstructured playtime, which is so important for creativity, problem solving, physical development, and the sleep disruption we talked about. That's particularly bad for young people, affecting growth, mood, learning, everything.
So for kids and teens, the advice is maybe less about hard time limits and more about protecting those other essential activities.
That's a good way to think about it. Encouraging screen-free family time, like meals together without phones, maybe game nights, making sure they get plenty of outdoor time, physical activity. These things become really vital buffers. They help build healthier habits early on.
Okay, this leads to the big question everyone asks. How much is actually too much screen time? Is there like a magic number?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, there's no single perfect answer because everyone's situation is different. Work, school, life.
Right.
But the guidelines that often come up in the research can give us a starting point. For adults, the focus is usually on recreational screen time, the stuff that's not essential work or school. They often suggest trying to keep that under, say, 2 hours a day.
Okay, recreational. That makes sense.
For younger kids, like ages 2 to 5, the recommendations are usually much stricter, often no more than an hour a day, and ideally with a parent involved, watching or interacting together.
And for teenagers?
For teens, it often shifts away from just counting hours. It's more about balance. Is screen time displacing sleep? Is it getting in the way of homework, exercise, seeing friends in person? If it's interfering with those core things, then it's likely too much, regardless of the exact number of hours.
So it's about making sure screens aren't crowding out the rest of life.
Exactly. It's about protecting time for those other essential things. And beyond just guidelines, there are practical strategies people can use to build a healthier tech routine.
Like what?
Well, actually, tracking your screen time can be a real eye-opener. Most phones have that built in now, just seeing the numbers.
Can be pretty shocking sometimes.
It really can. And that awareness is the first step. Another big one is creating tech-free zones or times, like no phones at the dinner table, or maybe no screens in the bedroom, or at least for the hour before bed.
Setting physical boundaries.
Yeah. And adjusting device settings helps too. We mentioned blue light filters, but also just turning off non-essential notifications, maybe using grayscale mode sometimes to make the screen less appealing, less stimulating.
Less addictive.
Less likely to constantly pull your attention, yeah. And then consciously making time for offline stuff. Reading a real book, going for a walk in nature, picking up a hobby that doesn't involve a screen, just being present with people.
Deliberately choosing the offline world sometimes.
And finally, trying to be more intentional about how you use screens when you are using them. Are you actively learning something, connecting meaningfully, or just passively scrolling? Making screens work for you rather than just reacting to them.
Shifting from reactive to intentional use. I like that.
It's about agency.
Okay, so wrapping this up. It feels like the big message from all this research is that, yes, screen time has some really significant effects on our thinking, sleep, mood, bodies.
Definitely. The impacts are well documented.
It's not inherently evil, right?
Yeah.
Technology connects us, helps us learn, entertains us. It has huge value.
Absolutely. The key takeaway isn't to ditch technology, but to become much more aware and mindful about how we're using it.
So by understanding these potential downsides, And by making some conscious choices, setting some boundaries, building in breaks, prioritizing movement and offline activities, you can actually navigate this digital world in a way that supports your well-being instead of undermining it.
That's the goal. And maybe thinking about that balance, it leaves you with a question to chew on. Given how deeply embedded tech is and how it's often designed to grab us, what does a truly healthy, balanced digital life actually look like for you? Beyond just time limits, how can you make sure the tech you use genuinely serves your values, your goals, your relationships, and isn't just running the show?
Something definitely worth thinking about. Well, this has been really insightful. Thanks for joining us for this discussion here on The Clinical Pen.
My pleasure.
And listeners, don't forget to subscribe, and please do visit clinicalpen.com. We'll see you next time.